Thank you everyone and welcome wherever you are in the world for joining us today. If you're in Ireland or Europe area, it's your lunchtime, so thanks for taking the time on your lunch to listen to this. Hope you find it beneficial. I'm going to give you, I suppose, information and tips around sleep and stress, and food related issues to that too. And there's a lot in this presentation, so if you'd like to take notes, please do grab a pen, piece of paper, or type if you want to do that. And if you have any questions throughout, if you want to put them into the chat on this, Michelle will manage that. And at the end, then she can feed them back to me if there's questions. So I'm going to get straight into it because, as I said, there's quite a lot in it. I'll kind of, Michelle has introduced me. At the end, I'll kind of surmise me and what I do and my contact details if anyone else would like to get in touch with me for one-on-one help or for other kind of group talks, things like that, okay? So the talk today, as Michelle has said, is sleep, stress, food, and you. Okay, why are these things so important in our lives? Well, sleep, first and foremost, for me, is the main thing. And if we can kind of get this right, it's the first kind of pillar in our day that everything else will hopefully fall into in a much better place. Prior to me studying nutrition, I would have probably have said food first for everything, get your food right and everything else will fall into place. Since working in the field of nutrition and then studying more about like the health and the impacts of different things have on our health, I would now absolutely sit in the fence that sleep is the first thing that we need as humans to have right, and if that's right, well then everything else can kind of fall into place a lot easier. So in regards to that, okay, this is just a basic picture. You can Google this for yourselves after the talk as to our circadian rhythm as humans. So what is that? Your circadian rhythm basically is our biological clock of 24 hours in the day. So during different periods of the day, we as humans are more likely to be able to do certain things, or from a hormone perspective, or equally just from a physical perspective. So for example, you can see there in this image, bowel movement is most likely in the morning time. So in relation to that, it's really good to have a healthy bowel movement. And so you should be expecting to have one daily in the morning, and that should be regular for you, okay? If you're an evening pooper, you should be looking at, well, why is that happening, okay? So to correct your circadian rhythm around things like that is a good thing to do. Sleep is your superpower, okay? This is a quote I heard a few years ago and I use it a lot because why, okay? It literally is something that we can all utilize daily to our best purposes. We all have the same access to it. I know our circumstances can be slightly different in relation to like if we have children waking us up, etc. But on a whole, there are ways around our days that we can manage our sleep, okay? First and foremost, it's free. No matter who you are, where you live, you have the same access to free sleep, good quality sleep, okay? As I said, it determines the rest of our day, our daily health story. It's the foundation that food and exercise can sit under. So you know yourself, you have bad night's sleep, you're not going to be able to get up in the morning and train hard or feel at your most productive self, okay? It benefits your microbiome and improves your immunity. So what do I mean by that? Okay, talk for a different day all about our immune health. But basically our immune health, that's our gut, okay, most of it, 80% is in our gut. And our microbiome is our bacteria there, okay? So you get your sleep right, your microbiome, that's the bacteria, the good stuff that we want in our gut, will be in a better position to be healthy, okay? It too has its own circadian rhythm. So it too needs a break from things like stress, stress and eating, okay? And I'll talk a little bit around that as well. Sleep is it's naturally anti-inflammatory and it's an anti-stress, okay, for our body. So when we are sleeping, everything is resting and resetting, okay, including our hormones. So it regulates our hormones. So it's a natural HRT. So everything resets at night. Our cortisol levels should go down. When we wake in the morning, they should be higher, etc. It's a natural appetite suppressant. So you might be familiar with, having had a really bad sleep or only having a few hours sleep if you were, had to get up in the middle of the night to go to the airport or whatever the case may be, okay? That's the case. You might be familiar with the next day feeling not yourself, more hungry, craving carby foods. Why is that, okay? The less we sleep, the less our body's cells are able to absorb glucose, okay? So our cells can't work to their most efficient level, which basically means our metabolism is slowed down. The more sleep you get, the better sleep The better your metabolism is, the better your cells are at absorbing glucose from the food that we eat. Main sources of glucose are from those carby foods, okay? It allows for our leptin and ghrelin hormones to regulate. What are our leptin and ghrelin? Our leptin is the appetite suppressant, and our ghrelin is our hungry hormone, okay? So you have less sleep, your ghrelin hormone, your hungry hormone is going to be more awake the next day. How do we sleep, right? So like anything, if you know the kind of education and around how our body works, the awareness around that, then you're in a better position to correct your own management of that. So this is just a little bit of science, I suppose, around that. So melatonin, that's the hormone that we need in order to induce sleep in our bodies, okay? It increases, so most hormones will decrease at night. Melatonin is the one that we want to increase at night, okay, to induce sleep, okay? That happens naturally with most humans. Some people lack that natural level to kick in, okay? I'll talk in a minute around foods that can help that, but things, and also things that you can do to help that. So blue light, which we're all now familiar with, which comes on our devices, on our phones, on our iPads, laptops, etc., that suppresses the increase of melatonin. So the only time that you should be sticking a blue light in front of your face to not enable you to sleep is if you want to stay awake after a flight, etc., if you've jet lag or whatever, okay? Other than that, you should be putting that phone, laptop, whatever it is, away from your face, minimum of, like, if you can, 90 minutes before bed. I would always say a no tech 90, okay? We sleep in 90-minute cycles. Okay, what does this mean? We go from a state of deep sleep, our NREM phase, to our REM phase, okay? So our deep sleep allows for repair, regeneration, all of those things to sink back in. And then our REM sleep, that's the dreaming stage. Our emotional reading and can be perfected during this stage if we get into it properly, comprehension, etc. Our REM increases as the night goes on. So every 90 minutes, when we get into that REM state, we go from 10 minutes, then it'll go a little bit longer, up to an hour of good quality REM. So you might be familiar with when you wake in the morning to your alarm going off, and you might go, God, I'm awake. I was having a really good dream about. That means that you are in that REM stage when you wake, okay? So if we just think about that, with the alarm going off, waking you like a big shock in that REM state, that is not a good place for your body to be in for the rest of the day. So you know the saying, got out of bed the wrong side? That's when someone wakes you during that REM phase. So in a very ideal state, this is in my next slide, if we can as humans not wake ourselves during that REM stage, that's brilliant for our sleep cycle, okay? And what that means is, theoretically, if you can wake in the morning without the use of an alarm clock, our bodies naturally should wake up just at the end of that longest phase of REM, when we've had our full rest and we are ready then to wake for the day, okay? So trial this on yourselves. If you know you have the luxury of being able to do that, maybe the weekends or something. No alarm clock, you know, see if you wake up naturally, how you're feeling, and, you know, do you remember a dream, etc., etc. The 90-minute cycle thing, that's another tip for you as well in relation to your alarm clock. So let's say you have your alarm set for 6:30 in the morning, it wakes you up, you feel like you've remembered a dream, you're in a bad mood for the day, you probably were in that REM stage of sleep when the alarm woke you, right? So test yourself then, and if you, at the weekend, for example, don't have the alarm on, but you're naturally waking at 6:30 because that's when you normally get up, but then you go back to sleep, see, do you sleep for an hour and a half, that 90-minute cycle? Does that make sense? So that you're going from 6:30 to 8 and getting that full cycle in again, and then you wake naturally, your body is in a better position, okay? Whereas this kind of dozing, snoozing on our phone, not good for us. Every 2 to 3 minutes in and out of sleep, not good. We're literally dipping into that REM, coming out. So when you wake, ideally, naturally, by yourself, feeling good, that is the time to get up, okay? So a lot of things can affect our sleep, okay? Our outside factors in particular, and that's about managing these, okay? So our sympathetic nervous system, which is our stressed part of our nervous system, can be more heightened by outside factors affecting our sleep. So I'll give you an example. You might be familiar with, going to a hotel room, new space for you to sleep in. It could be on a busy road. The room next door to you has the TV on, very noisy, bright lights, etc., etc. Your sympathetic nervous system is at a higher level now because of all of these senses around you that you're not normally used to, okay? So that's an example of not being in a relaxed state when you're trying to get into a good night's sleep, okay? Alcohol, a big one. It affects the REM stage of your sleep. We cannot get into our REM stage properly for that long period when we drink alcohol. It doesn't matter how much it is or when in the day you have it, it's in your system for a period of time and it affects your REM sleep. So you'll often hear people say, I had a few drinks last night, didn't sleep great. That is why, okay? You're not getting into that deep REM stage, okay? Light, particularly blue light, we've mentioned that affects your ability. The melatonin increase won't happen and it affects your ability to be able to get into that deep sleep, okay? Exercise early in the day. Why? Because your hormones basically are, your cortisol level increases, that's your stress hormone, when you exercise. So we don't want that to be increasing as we're getting ready for bed. We want it to be decreasing. Noise, as I mentioned about the hotel room. Stress is a big impact. So ideally we should be spending about 2 hours before we go to bed to wind down. I'll give you tips around this now in a second. Okay, caffeine, huge one. Try to cut that out by lunchtime. It blocks the adenosine receptors in our brain. These are the receptors that allow us to start to relax and allow sleep to induce, and it blocks them. That's why if you're feeling tired, people will say, if you're going on a car journey and you're feeling tired, have the caffeine. That's why, okay? Age, hugely important to how we sleep, okay? If there are teenagers on, or you might remember to when you are a teenager, we need way more sleep. That's a lot to do with our growth and development, but it's also to do with our hormones. And during that phase of our life, we need less of the NREM and more of that really deep, dreamy sleep, the REM, okay? So you might see teenagers, like they'll sleep till like midday or later, and then they get out of bed and they're quite groggy and they're quite tired still when they get up. Okay, that's a lot to do with them being in that REM stage for a lot longer, okay? And then the reverse, as we age, our melatonin increases earlier in the day, we need less sleep, and we tend to go to bed earlier. And we might nap as well in the evening. You might be familiar with the elderly people having naps after their tea or their dinner in the evening. That's because their melatonin has increased earlier and they tend to go to bed earlier as well, okay? So here's the tips how to improve your sleep. Management. Everything in life is about knowing what works for you and controlling that. So control the controllables. So control, the light in your room, the noise, etc. Okay? Prioritize it. Really important. Just like you should be prioritizing your 3 meals that you eat every day, prioritize sleep. If you need to, set an alarm clock to remind you, okay, I've got to get up now, stop watching TV, organize myself to wind down for the night to get a good night's sleep. So like I would say to people, we don't sit at the table to wait to get hungry. We sit at a table when we are hungry and we're ready to eat. Same with bed. Go to bed when you are tired and you are ready to sleep, okay? If you're one of these people that goes to bed and you find it really hard to sleep, that shouldn't be the way, okay? We should be getting into bed, feeling relaxed and ready to sleep. It's a skill. Everything in life is a skill. You got to practice it, okay? Practice to make perfect. Get this routine going for yourself of a good prepping pre-bed, and it will become then a natural thing for you to do, and it will become very easy and you'll get good sleep, hopefully. If you're one of these people that you feel really hard when you get into bed to switch off and your brain is going, okay, what I say to people is brain dump before you go to bed. So write down all of those thoughts, the list that you might need to do the next day, anything that's going on in your head that you need to get out before you can get into bed, write it down. Pen to paper, get it down, okay? No tech 90 where possible. If you find this really hard, like the big no-no for me is like any form of electrical device, phone, technology, blue light in your bed, no, okay? So ideally, Definitely not in front of your screen or your face half an hour before bed, ideally an hour and a half before bed. My new favorite thing, seeing as with the whole COVID and lockdown and everything, I haven't been near an airport or on a plane in a very long while, and I would imagine until 2021 anyway, but I'm still using airplane mode, feeling like I'm on a plane, because I use that every night now for 2 hours before I go to bed. I stick my phone in airplane mode, and it really 100% has helped me. I would have been really good at putting my phone away anyway, but the temptation is still there if you've still got signal coming into your phone, just to tap on those apps one last time just to see if there's anything important there for me. Whereas when it's on airplane mode, it's another step for you to actually get into those apps, and you're less likely to do it, okay? Dim your lights. So red light, like a low hull of a red light, is good for winding down at the night. So red is what we want, blue is what we don't want. I've said about airplane mode, and then darken your rooms. Black out blinds if you can, or just wear an eye mask as well. Eat your last meal minimum of 2 hours before bed. I would need push that out to 3 if you can. Your body needs 2 to 3 hours to digest your food that you've eaten, and you'll sleep much better if you've given yourself that period. Spoken about caffeine, 3 hours before bed, and I've written there exercise HIIT versus LIT. So LIT is the new, so high intensity interval training versus low intensity interval training. What's low intensity? That's like your yoga, etc. So do those kind of deep breathing forms of exercise. Some Pilates, light Pilates, yoga, rather than like a high intensity cardio exercise. Heat is another good one. It increases our melatonin naturally. So have a bath, but don't do that like straight away before bed. Have a period of time where you've increased the melatonin. It will help you to feel sleepy. But then you've given yourself a period, maybe of an hour, a little bit longer, where your body temperature can get to a cool state before bed. Our bodies like to be cool in bed, not overly hot. Okay, it's all about quality and not quantity. So it's about the efficiency of your sleep rather than being in bed for 12 hours and only sleeping really good for 4 of them. Your morning routine equally as important as your evening routine, okay? So have a routine. Do you get up? Do you go for a walk in the sunlight? Have your breakfast. Do you drop kids to school, come home, etc., blah, blah, blah. Morning sunlight into our eyes, into the pupils of our eyes before 11 a.m. without sunglasses is really good for us. That helps to reset or set our circadian rhythm. After that, we should be using sunglasses. Stress. Okay, what is it? It is something that we all need a little bit of, but not too much of. Okay, so it's a state of mental and emotional strain. So as humans, we have that stress, fight or flight response. Okay, that's natural and we need it. Okay, our cortisol, our stress hormone, increases when we are stressed. A little bit of that is good, too much is bad. We get that foggy head, can't think straight. Oh my God, too much going on in my brain. We'll all recognize that feeling. So to not be in that kind of state is a really good thing. And to be aware of how we get in or out of it is also good. So I'm going to talk you through some techniques around that. So just, I suppose, in relation to the management of stress, to be aware of how it can manifest in us can often help to prevent the big feeling of stress, happening. So we can get into it through, through many means, but emotionally, feeling overwhelmed, physically, you've that feeling of, I have a pain in my stomach because of stress. You might suffer from irritable bowel. You might be physically, we've all heard of that, like chronic fatigue syndrome. A lot of that is brought on by stress. Behaviorally, so you might be feeling really stressed with your work environment day to day. Working from home now might be really stressful for you. As an example, you could be using your behavior in response to that could be like you're snacking way more or you're smoking way more, whatever it is. And then as well, like things like when we're really overstressed, you just can't think straight as well. Okay. So these are some examples of things that can just affect humans in relation to stress and increasing them. So lack of time or no downtime. So I know with COVID, our lives have changed hugely, but back, at the beginning of this year, the world in general tended to be on a cycle of rush, rush, rush. I have no time. I don't have time to do this, that, or the other. I'm trying to make time. We then were in lockdown and everyone was kind of like, I have a bit more time. Now what do I want to do? And everyone's like, okay, maybe actually just having more time and being in nature and stopping and giving myself time to eat my lunch rather than rushing from one meeting to the next and grabbing food to go, etc., has put us in a better place. Okay, if that's the case, fantastic. If we're feeling like we've more time now and we're actioning more of this, I would say to you, stick with that. Give yourself more time to do the little things. Okay, give yourself time for downtime. Our brains need it. Go for your lunch walk, tech free, big as well. Like if you're having your lunch, try to be mindful around eating that. Get out in nature more. Daily dose of nature. I think a lot of us through lockdown have experienced that as well. Getting out for a little bit of a walk, looking at greenery, if we can hear the sounds of the sea, etc. All of those things really help to calm our nervous system down, okay? If you don't have the luxury of getting out, even looking at those images can really help as well, okay? Passion and purpose, really key for the human to feel connected and well and like they are, you know, that their why of life is being met, if that makes sense. So do something every day that you feel purpose and enjoyment in, okay? It builds resilience and makes for a happier, healthier human. Here's a stat for you in relation to loneliness. And I found when I came across this, I found this quite shocking and hard to read, but it's a reality, okay? So loneliness affects everyone, but in men, category 30 to 45, it is the same effect on the human body as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So in relation to how it impacts our health, you know, that feeling of loneliness and, you know, not having a community connection, whatever it is, has the same impact on our body. That's awful, you know. So try to get involved in community, have connection, reach out to people, see people. Now that we can, you know, see people physically, you know, we might be able to hug or touch or whatever and keep our social distance, but actually just seeing people and having communication with people is really good for our stress, to decrease our stress as well. Breathing, a big one, okay? I'm not going to get into it too much today, but if we're breathing at a very heightened level, that is our sympathetic nervous system, our stress nervous system is being really aggravated, okay? So we've got to learn to reduce that or to get back into our parasympathetic nervous state, which is the relaxed state. And one tip is the 3-4-7 breathing technique. So that is, you breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 4, and out for 7. If you do that 3 times, your body will reset, your brain will reset to getting you back into that parasympathetic nervous state. Okay, de-stress. How are we going to de-stress? Okay, self-awareness is key. What do I mean by that? Okay, again, management tools. What works for you? Is it knitting? Is it going for a walk? I always say to people, use the win analogy. What's important now? So if you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh my God, I have 55 things to do before 9 o'clock, and then I've got to go and do whatever. Make your list of what's important now and what you can get done in that day, okay? Think about, will it matter in 5 years? Let the bigger stuff go. You know, if there's big stuff impacting you today, but it's not going to matter in 5 years, try to just let it go over the head. I use the analogy of hot air balloon, put it into that hot air balloon, let it float off. Spoke about the breathing technique, and that will help you also to swap from the parasympathetic nervous state, the sympathetic nervous state to the parasympathetic nervous state. And just a stat for you, not now, but in January, let's say, of this year, pre-COVID, we were in that stress state 80% of the time. We should only be in it 20% of the time, okay? So we need to swap that round. Ideally, if we can be in our relaxed state 80%, our parasympathetic, and then into our stress, which we need for that little bit of get up and go feeling, only 20% of the time though, okay? Get into nature, disconnect, rest. It's really important for the human body to just rest and reflect, okay? Reconnect with people, your passion and your purpose. Really important as well, and the thing I love talking about most is food. Eat well, exercise, and laugh, you know? Okay, last bit I'm going to talk about today is food's effect on all of this. Okay, does it affect it? Absolutely it does. So for example, we spoke about, you know, taking a break 2 to 3 hours pre-bed of not eating. So that's an example of how food can affect your sleep. You eat spicy things, you eat too late, your body's going to be working hard to digest those things. Or it's going to be, if you eat spicy food like half an hour before bed, I love spicy food, but half an hour before bed, that's going to increase my temperature, which is going to make me not potentially be able to sleep, okay? How are you eating? Are you mindful eating? Stop, you know, sit down, have your lunch, chew your food, okay? Take time out to eat. Again, just in relation to kind of when are you eating and before bed, you know, give yourself a 12-hour window of eating meals if possible. So if you start your first meal 8 in the morning, 8 in the evening ideally should be your cutoff point then before bed. So we don't need to be eating all of the time, okay? Again, depending on your own personal situation, maybe you do, maybe you're an athlete, maybe you're a pregnant lady, maybe you need to snack more. But our body also needs a break from that too. Don't let yourself get hangry. What do I mean by this? This is the state we get into when we haven't had food for quite a period of time. Our body goes into starvation mode. What happens then? Our cortisol, our stress hormone level increases, and that's the phrase that we use as hangry. Basically, your stress hormone is increased because your body needs food. Don't let yourself get into that. Why do we eat? We eat for many reasons, but the main reason we eat actually is because of hormones, insulin being one of them. I'm not going to talk about that on this presentation today, but just to be aware of when you're eating, why are you eating? Okay, are you hungry? Are you hangry? Is it to do with stress, etc.? Where are you eating? This is a big one as well, you know. Are you standing? Are you walking down the street eating a sandwich? You know, are you sitting with friends and enjoying a nice meal? All of that has an impact on how our body digests food. You might have heard of the phrase rest and digest. So if you're walking and eating a sandwich and grabbing your lunch to go, your body is not in a position to digest as you walk along, the best position, okay? What are you eating? Big ones, caffeine and alcohol, I've spoken about them. Try to cut them out. Okay, in an ideal, I love a glass of wine myself or a gin and tonic, but I'm aware that this impacts my sleep. So just be aware of that. Caffeine, try to cut it off by the middle of the day if you can, midday. Okay, so tips around increasing your melatonin. So cherries and pistachio nuts naturally have a melatonin occurring in them. So if you find it hard to get to sleep, eating cherries or pistachios with your dinner in the evening can help to increase that and might actually make you feel sleepy and make you want to go to bed. Likewise, if you combine proteins with carbs, which we should be doing anyway, this is called food combining, protein, carbs and fats at every meal. But if you have a last meal of protein, carbs and fats, what happens there is the protein is a tryptophan food. Eating carbohydrate with that will give you it's our feel-good hormone, the serotonin, gives us a boost of that, and that promotes sleep. So you might be familiar with, you know, your big Christmas dinner of roast turkey dinner and all of the trimmings, and everyone always says, so sleepy after I've eaten my Christmas dinner. Well, A, it could be because you've eaten a lot of food, but B, it's because you've combined all of those things together, okay? And that gives you that natural serotonin boost. So just to recap, it's sleep. Remember, this is your superpower, and you really, if you can utilize that to your best purposes, you really should be setting yourself up for a better health story for the rest of your life, okay? And prioritize it, disconnect, control what you can control. We are all in control of ourselves first and foremost. So managing your day as best you can to have better sleep, to eat better, to rest better, to exercise better, connect better. You know, that's all within our capabilities. Self-awareness around that is really key. Know what stresses you and know your coping strategies. This is a big one. Sometimes we can't avoid the stress, you know, that comes into our lives, and sometimes we naturally need that. But knowing how you can cope with those stressors, or how you do cope, is really good, and action that for life, you know. Aim for progress, not perfection. Perfection does not exist. If we strive for perfection, we're always just kind of battling with, you know, to be the best or to get the best, or, you know, progress. Aim to do a little bit better or more every day. And finally, and this is what I say to everybody, you know, people will often ask me, what should I eat? What's best? Like in a general broad sense, okay? Everybody is different. Everything that we do for everybody should be different for that reason, because we are all different. So you know your body best, listen to it. That is it for me. There's some details about myself. If anyone would like to get in touch, you can check out my website, my phone number, email, all of that is there. Please let me know if you'd like me to give you some one-on-one help. Send me an email. And that's it.